Hey, Katrisha, welcome to Coffee and Conversation with Rachel.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So since it's called Coffee and Conversation with Rachel, what is your go-to coffee, especially with boys at the house and young boys?
Well, that's a hard question. At home, it's just plain coffee with some creamer. But I like to go to Black Rock Coffee and get an Irish coffee there.
Okay. Yum.
Yes.
I don't like coffee. That sounds good. I love chai tea or just tea when I'm out and about and stuff. So
that's like bedtime stuff for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've tried coffee in all different kinds of ways, and I just, loaded with sugar, black, everything. I just do not like it, and I can taste it every time. My husband's always like, "Here, try this." It's, it's a brownie one, and I'm like, I can still taste it.
Ooh, I don't like them too sweet, and I do think it's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's just not happening for me. So you used to be a counselor, which I'm sure is so helpful in parenting in all aspects of life. So how would you say counseling has helped you in parenting your boys?
Well, so my counseling background is very varied in the experiences that I've had. But something that when I was going through it, what I really dug into and really liked about counseling was studying family systems and how that talks about the obvious part of it, the family system and what it is and how it operates and how you can change those dynamics if they're not healthy, and being able to identify where things are not working and figuring out what the root cause is so that you can make those adjustments. So for us, for my husband, Chris and I, when we started having children, we very quickly tried to establish what boundaries we wanted to have as far as raising our children. And family systems really operates on boundaries, having healthy boundaries. So we didn't want to have too many rules, but we didn't want to have too few that made life chaos.
Yeah.
And obviously we didn't know we were going to have 4 boys when we got started. So it's been very much of a learning cycle as we've had children and they've aged. So I would say that my counseling background has helped in the sense that I studied a lot about development. And so knowing brain development and knowing how as you grow and your brain develops and can actually understand things better, having appropriate expectations for your children helps you not lose your mind in parenting.
I need some of that. Yeah.
Sometimes it's really hard because you want to have the expectation slightly high enough for them to want to reach it, but not so high that they feel like they're never going to reach it and they feel like a failure. And that's really hard to find that balance. In my opinion, I feel like it's really hard because it's going to be different for each kid. So Liam, our oldest, we can put an expectation out there and he might struggle once or twice, but then he's ready to hit it and he wants to keep going. Whereas Graham, he is like, wow, I think that's too far. And he hesitates towards it. And so then we have to slightly lower it a little bit until he feels that encouragement to want to go for it. And then we keep nudging him with it. And eventually he gets there. Once he gets there and he realizes, oh, wow, I was able to do that and it wasn't so bad. Then he wants the next one. But he always wants to know, if this is where you want me to be, what's the first step I need to take? He needs more of a step-by-step instruction.
Do you sit and talk with them about that? Or this is our expectation for you and this is how you reach it? Or how does that go about?
Yeah. We usually, yes, we have a family conversation about it.
Okay.
So for example, we have a chore chart for our boys. And for each one, they only have 3 chores to get done in a day. But the expectation is those are the ones that you're to be mindful of. But the expectation is to be able to look around and see where else can you be helpful in our home? Because we all live in the home. We all make the mess. We all have to help each other clean up. It can't just fall to one person.
Yeah.
And so our goal behind that is eventually when they are adults and they're married and they have their own families, they're not looking at their wife saying, well, what do you need me to do? They're able to look around and say, I can do this, so I'm going to go do it. Or I see you're doing you're making dinner, but there's dishes in the sink that I can go ahead and get done, or I could be doing laundry or something. And so if they're able to look around and start figuring out, I can be helpful in these ways, that makes them grow up with the mindset of, I know I'm useful, I know I can be helpful, and I don't have to wait for someone to tell me what to do. So our goal is to eventually get there, but we have to set them on that track to get there.
Okay. What are some of you were talking about boundaries, like the hardest boundary y'all have had to set with them?
Cell phones.
Okay.
Cell phones have been the hardest one.
That's a big thing in our
culture.
culture.
They don't get to have cell phones. They won't get to have one until they're driving, and they would be away from us. And even at that, it'll be the most boring rinky-dink thing ever, like grandpa style go phone kind of thing. But they're not allowed to look at somebody else's phone or do anything like that without talking to us first, because we want to make sure that what they're seeing is going to be good for them, or if they're listening to something or a video. So like even with cousins, people that we trust, I mean, we enjoy them spending time together, being alone or whatever, but cousins, grandparents, even if they want to show them a video because they think it's funny, they have to come and talk to us. And they have to be able to tell us, this is what they're going to show us. This is what it's about. And we have to have a conversation to make sure that that is going to be good and healthy for them. Because we spend a lot of time talking in our home about things you're going to hear and things you're going to see. And it's really hard to get those things out of your head. Yes. And so we have to be mindful of, if it's that hard to get it out of our head, do we need to be putting ourselves in a position to even let it go there? We can't prevent everything, but the things that we can prevent for right now, we need to.
Yeah. So. Do you feel like parents and cousins are good at respecting that boundary? I feel like we've ran into the problem sometimes where it is not respected. It's a hard conversation. It
has been hard. We've had some pushback from people being offended that that they thought when we said that we were implying they were going to show them something inappropriate. And so we've had to step in and say, I don't believe that you're going to show them something inappropriate, but they have to be able to practice it with people they trust and love in order to do that with somebody else, somewhere else.
Yeah.
So the more practice they get doing it, just like being able to tell me no. My child has to be able to tell me, no, I don't like that shirt that you would like to buy at the store. That's not my style.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me no. Because you need to be able to tell somebody else, no, I need you to stop. I can't do that. That crosses my boundary. So if I want my kid to be able to do that with somebody else for their safety and protection, or just to stay in their own boundaries, they have to practice it with me first to get that confidence, that courage to do it somewhere else. So the same thing with the cell phones. Graham and Liam are really great at it. Alaric's just now coming along with it because he's only 4, so he's just now figuring that out. But Liam and Graham, they're doing really well at remembering that is the boundary. And so, like, they've gone and they've had to do it with their family members. And whenever they're like, why do you have to go talk to your mom and dad? They've gotten practice at saying, because that's our family boundary, and it's our job to respect that boundary to be healthy. And so we try to listen for it, to step in and back them up and help them. But now that we've done it so many times, there's no more pushback. It's a pause and a wait for, okay, go check with your mom and dad. I'll wait for you.
I love the wording, the practice. Like, I don't know, just with grandparents. Like, I need them to be able to practice with you.
Yes.
Someone they trust. So like when they're in a situation with someone they don't trust, like they've had that practice.
Yes.
That's really good. Yeah. So you homeschool the boys.
Yes.
4 energetic boys, which is amazing. What challenges do you have homeschooling them, and like how do you throw discipleship into the homeschooling and all that stuff?
Wow. That's a hard one.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. Homeschooling is, I think, discipling in itself, because as parents, you're a teacher no matter what. I mean, you're just adding another layer to all of it. And so I try really hard to be consistent in what our parenting has been and just bringing that back into our school system that we do at home. Excuse me. And so using words like, this is your responsibility, I think helps them to take that ownership, and it's helped them to take pride in what they're doing, which has helped them to want to excel and do better in school. But we also have our days where they don't want to do school and they don't want to do anything. And it's like pulling teeth, trying to get them to listen and to stay focused and to follow through. And that's usually where we bring it back to how it's the little steps that make the biggest change. It's not just doing one big thing is going to make the change. It's the consistency of just all the little steps that we're doing gets us to where we want to go. And so even if it's a hard day, reminding them it's hard, but you can do the hard things. So take 5 minutes and just be really focused. And then let's take a 5-minute break. And so if we have to go in 5-minute increments, makes the day feel enormously long, but it saves us from just losing it completely. And so, but we also try to do things where if it's something really hard, like that they have a goal that they're working towards. So maybe it's, we need to get through this lesson, and I know it's a really hard lesson and it's really deep, but then let's take 20 minutes and you can choose a game to go play. Or let's take the time, and I try to like hold a lot of the really hard, deep ones for right before lunch. So we'll get through it, and then it's like mental break. We stop, we eat lunch, we talk, we play games. It's like a 2-hour break. It gives their brain just a big rest from it all. And then they come back in and they're ready to just finish out the last, it's like 30 minutes. But we used to try to do it all at one time, and it got really hard. We added in Graham because it wasn't just my focus on just Liam. It was then like, Liam's got to do this, Graham's got to do this. And so learning how to do both of them at the same time and meet their needs. Graham learns very different than Liam. So learning that was interesting. And he's had a little bit of like dyslexia and stuff like that. So I had to learn a lot. I had to go and study how to help him overcome that, and then work really hard with him to overcome that. That was very trying for me as a mom because I felt like I was failing all the time with him because it wasn't as easy as it was with Liam. And now to see where he's at, I realized we weren't failing. We were doing the same thing. We were taking little steps of progress, and we just stayed the course, and we were willing to just ride that progress and just know that we were going to get there eventually, but it was going to take longer. And so not wanting him to feel defeated. So encouraging him of, I know it's taking longer than you want, and I know you're frustrated. And you can give me your frustration, but we're going to keep doing this together. We're not giving up because we can do the hard things. So him hearing that, really good. Now he says it back to himself. When it's hard, he says, I can do the hard things. I know I can. And so he's got that in his head, and I love that for him.
Yeah. You're speaking truth into him, right? Like, I feel like that goes a long way with kids. Just speaking truth into them. And I feel like you're teaching them hard life lessons of like, if you have something hard, we don't have to tackle it all at one time.
Right.
We can do it little by little, and eventually we'll get there. We're not going to give up, but like we can do it little by little.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's really sweet. Do you feel like Liam, can see, now that you're homeschooling all of them, how does he pitch in as like the older brother and his sweet little gifts? He has such a sweet heart.
He is super sweet, and he wants to be the biggest helper. And so sometimes I worry about him feeling the need to be another parent because he's just like, oh, I can do this and I can do that. And I'm like, I don't need you to be a parent, baby. It's fine. I got this. And he's like, no, I know you do, but I can help too. And so we are always trying to find that balance of, are you helping too much? Because you need to be a kid, and it's not your responsibility. And he's really taken hold of I can look for ways to be helpful and taken that on. Awesome. And he loves it. But then I'm like,
finding that balance.
But not so much. Like, it's not all your responsibility. So you don't have to take it all on. And so with Liam, he's been really great about if he's gotten through a section of school and he's done, he's like, I'm going to go play with the littles right now. Because usually Alaric and Memphis, they interrupt a lot, which probably is great for Graham because he gets a lot of little breaks while I go and deal with them. But so Liam will be like, I'm done and I have to wait for my next section that you want me to move on to. I'm going to go play with them while you finish up focusing with Graham. And that's been really nice that he's recognized that as a need to be helpful. And it gives him time to bond with them that he doesn't usually do because it's usually him and Graham playing together. Lark and Memphis playing together because those age groups go well together.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you see lots of sweet moments homeschooling.
yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure I feel like it's a struggle with me when we go to school all day and then putting Jesus, day to day, we can throw little things in there, but you get to study that a little bit more with them and be a little more intentional about it. I mean, we're pretty intentional, but it's like a little Bible study in the morning and then we go and start our day. And
Right. I think dinner time conversations are the best, in my opinion. We have conversations periodically throughout the days, and they definitely throw off the wall questions where I'm like, we weren't even talking about that.
Yeah.
I don't even know why we're having this conversation, but here we go. You asked it, so let's answer it. But usually dinner time, they usually are very reflective on their day, or we try to ask pointed questions like, how were you kind today? Where did you help the most? Or where did you struggle the most today? And what could we do tomorrow to make that better or make it less of a struggle?
I like that.
And so not very often do we actually ask the question, how was your day?
Yeah, no. Good. That's what they say. Good.
Because usually we'll get it was fine. And so I'm like, nah, I want better answers than that. Or we'll ask them things like, what have you been thinking about a lot that you've not said to anybody? And it's weird.
That's a really good question.
They'll come out with things and I'm like, that's what you've been thinking about? Okay. We asked that the other night and Graham was like, I was thinking, had Adam and Eve never sinned, what would the world look like? And I'm just trying to figure it out. And I'm like, you're 7.
That's deep.
You're 7, kid. I don't even know how to figure that out. But let's
talk through it. I don't know either.
Like, tell me what you think that looked like. He's like, well, first, I'd kill the snake. And I'm like, great. No snakes. Got it. But I mean, it's really sweet to listen to their conversations. And it's not so much about correcting something that's wrong, unless it's super fundamental, but just letting them have the conversations and see what their brain's doing. And it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I feel like our dinner time is so crazy. We started getting, because I just feel like it's chaos and everyone's yelling at each other. And we got these cards off the internet, conversation cards. And they actually really enjoyed doing those. They each gets to pick a question. We ask it. And I feel like it's good and intentional and calms down dinner a little bit more than, and we always go around and talk about our mountaintops and valleys. So I feel like that's a good way to get them talking to, what, made you sad or angry or you were just down a little bit today. And
we do that usually on Sundays or Saturdays, depending if Sunday's really busy. So we call those family meetings. And everyone sits together on the couch and it's tell us 2 highs and 1 low. And so usually they lead with their low and we finish out with their high as a reminder of, even though we've had low moments, the good always outweighs the bad kind of thing. And so we like to do that. And then that's usually when we talk about where we're going to change chores and what do we need to work on as a family. Was there something this week that we struggled with as a family that we need to address?
Mm-hmm.
So a few weeks ago, Liam and Graham were butting heads a lot. And I was at my wit's end kind of thing. And so when we sat down and we actually talked about it, because we'd had conversations as it was happening, but I was like, okay, we're a week into this. I don't know what the root cause is, why all of a sudden we're having this going on.
Yeah.
And when it came down to it was just one wanted to have their way. Obviously, the other wanted to have their way. And they couldn't figure out how to make the two come together to compromise, to be a team.
Mm-hmm.
And so in conflict, we try to give our boys the ability, the space to resolve it on their own. We don't always rush in to do that for them. And this was one where they were just having a really, really hard time with it. And so as we sat there and we talked about it, more things came out about how they're like, well, I'm really frustrated that daddy has to be gone right now during the week with the new job change. And we knew it was going to be hard. And we thought we had talked about it and we had really put stuff out there. But they were trying to process through that. And that was blocking them from being able to do the other. So the other was really just masking the underlying thing of, I really don't like this transition that we're in. And I want it to be over with. But they made it about something else. And so getting to the root of that, then we were able to go forward and say, what can we do to make this an easier transition? Because we can't change it. Because you can't always change things in life. So we can't change it. But what can we do to work through it better? And so they came up with their ideas and we implemented that, and it just resolved itself at that point as they were able to get that off their minds. And so those have been things that have been good for us.
Yeah.
And how we operate.
Did he willingly share that, or were there like questions that you asked, like get deep down to that? Because I think that's what I struggle with sometimes is, I know something's going on, but I can't figure it out, but I don't know what questions to ask sometimes. And
I don't always know the questions to ask. Do
you sit in silence and be like, could it be this? Could it be this? Okay.
Sometimes I just sit in silence with them. I can see they're having their emotions. And so I just hold their hands to maintain connection that I'm here for you.
Okay.
But something that counseling comes into play is when you have someone going through something, you don't always have to say something.
Yeah.
Just being very present with them can be very healing. Same thing with your children. If they're going through something, it may not be that it's hardly ever that they don't want to actually talk to you about it, but they don't know what to say. They themselves in their head are trying to figure it out, and they don't even know how to get you to that point with them. But if you can sit with them and let them know in a very comforting way, I'm here, whatever you need to say. It's a free space. And in our home, we say that a lot. There's nothing that you can't say to me. And I don't care what words you have to use, but you got to share with me whatever's going on, because I can't help if I don't know what it is. And so sometimes it's just sitting there with them, being quiet and just holding their hand and just saying, I see that you're really bothered by something. And I'm going to sit with you for as long as you need me to. And that usually morphs into them taking a few breaths, and then either maybe they start crying, or they're just like, well, I just don't know. And that's whenever you got to be really curious. I understand you don't know. What is it that you don't know? And they'll give you little bits of things, and you just got to take it and keep turning it around. And eventually you'll get there, or sometimes it's being curious in the sense of, like with Graham, I know that you don't want to fight with Liam. You love playing with him, and you two love being together, but you are fighting right now. And I know you don't like that. How could that get resolved for you? Or, if you're not really fighting about the games that you're playing, what are you upset with him about? And so allowing that to just run the conversation course and just listen and just let them talk. And children are going to be like dogs, they throw the ball and they go this way and that way, and you got to keep up with it. But you can usually zone in on little pieces that keep coming up. And that's where the root of the problem is going to be. And you just find a way to go there with them.
Okay. Yeah. Because I don't know if I've ever just sit for, 10 minutes with them. I always want to just go in and fix it. Like start asking questions. Did something happen at school? Did your brother did something? Just going in and asking. And I'm like, I need to just sit probably.
It's hard. There's that mama bear inside you.
Yes.
Wants to protect. If somebody hurt my child, I want to fight for them. You also don't want to see your children sad or unhappy. No parent does. But what you're teaching your children is you can have your feelings and your emotions. There's nothing wrong with them. They don't have to be scary. You can have them, but we can also work through them. Okay. And when we work through them, what we're developing is the emotional intelligence to identify what they are, but then also the steps to actually cope and handle them. And they learn that now so that when they're adults, hopefully they don't want to look to drugs or alcohol or
any
other things,
kind of thing,
anything else to cope with whatever's happening in life. They know what to do. And you're setting that groundwork for them to always know, my mom and dad, I know exactly where I need to go. I don't know what to do, but I know I can go have a conversation with them. And I can have that, and we're going to figure it out together.
Oh, so thank you so much for stopping by. Yeah. This was really, really good stuff.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me.
Yes. I have lots of tools to take home and to work on myself.
Oh,
thanks.
Thank you.